Hello, this is Kathy from the Daily Marker. How are you today? I want to share with you a card that I made with some colored pencils from Chameleon. I love them, and I wanted to share my process, how fabulous they are to use. This is a Stamping Bella stamp. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm inking up the stamp with some beige ink, some dye ink, and today's video is going to be a series of slower portions and then faster portions because coloring pencil can be it's kind of slowish, and you can almost see it flow better when it's faster, if that makes sense. So I've put down a first layer of color with the lightest colored pencil, and now I'm using the other side of this pencil. I love how there's two colors. The colored pencils are fabulous for travel because there's two on each one, so you get so much bang for your buck. The box props up the pencils, and it's light and easy, and they color beautifully. So I'm adding I've picked up a blue pencil. There's a couple different shades. There's like 6 different blues. And I'm just adding, as you can see, I'm adding just another layer, just starting to build up that color in the little nooks and crannies. So I start in the nooks and crannies, and then I kind of bring that color towards the middle of the petals. So I'm just kind of mixing the blues with the purples and focusing on those tiny little areas. Now I'm going back with the darker color, and I like to use lines instead of I've already put down my base color, so now I like adding color with a series of lines. You can see that right there. So try that. I think you'll be surprised. And if you keep coloring lines on top of lines, it fills in and it looks solid, but there's more texture. So I'm going to speed this up now. The video is like over an hour, and I know it's actually better to practice than it is to watch someone do like a 20-minute video, I think, with pencils. So I'm just proceeding, building up my layers of color, going back to those nooks and crannies, adding another layer, and I'm alternating between these 4 colors here. And now I'm just kind of adding some detail on the petals and darkening up those lines. You do have to be careful that you're not putting your palm on top of what you're coloring. So I kind of like to start at the top of my project and move my way down, and just always be conscientious of that. I'm also sharpening my pencil a lot, but I deleted those parts because my hand's moving all over, and I just tried to chisel down this video. So you don't see me doing that, but if you keep an eye on my bowl, you'll see that fill up. But I feel like I get better results no matter what pencil I use with a sharp tip. There's a lot of colored pencils on the market, and some are a little bit more creamy, some have a harder tip, but I think you can get a good result if you keep sharpening that tip throughout. Even on a tiny little petal, I might sharpen it 3 times. But these blend beautifully. I really, truly love them. I tried them at CHA. When was that? Last January, and I've just been watching to see when these were going to come out, and then I was delighted. Splitcoaststampers asked me to do a review on them, so you can go to Splitcoaststampers to find that review, which I'm telling you right here, right now. I love them and what I like about them, and I'll be doing some more projects with these as well. And of course, I'm going away this weekend. I'll be taking these with me. I travel a lot with markers or colored pencils, and these will be the pencils I'll be taking because you have so many at your fingertips. And I also love the way they prop up. Now, enough about that. I have a sharp tip here, and I'm just tracing over that line on these like little doodads. And I'll be going over them again with different colors and browns, and I just didn't feel like it was important to watch me do that. Now the leaves that go up on these flowers, I'm just putting that base coat with like a bright green. I want the green to be different than what's on the stem and stuff. And then I keep going back and adding a little bit more color as I move around different parts of my card base. So I'm just adding some darker purple. I always gravitate towards those nooks and crannies and adding more and more layers of dark. I just feel like it makes a pop. So I kind of just let it sit, and then I go back and I just add more. Sometimes that's a fault because you really don't need to do that. You could really just stop and let it go. But it's part of the process for me, and I enjoy that. So that's what coloring is all about, is enjoying the process. So now I'm moving around with like another purple color. You can just see that I'm alternating that. Now, my base layer is finished here, and it's time to start adding more layers. Now, with every colored pencil, you have to be careful that you don't press hard. You want to build up the layers with light strokes or circles, but if you push too hard, then you're burnishing it. And I like to use the term wax out, because there's wax in pencils, and if you push really hard, in my vocabulary I like to say wax out, it waxes out and you cannot add anything on top, barely even a black marker. So you have to be careful of that. Just practice, having a relaxed hand and using light layers of color. And it doesn't look good while you're building up the layers. You have to be patient. Listen to a book on tape, listen to some music, and just wait and be patient and let the colors build and watch the process. And then you'll be like, okay, hey, I can do this. Stop, go cook dinner, come back. Just be patient with yourself and let it unfold. And trust me, you will be happy in the end. So again, just building up some layers. I really like how working the brown into these green parts on the flowers really just, if you mix in a different color, it adds so much interest to the eye. And when I move on to her dress, you'll see that. But right now, I'll just finish up. Anyways, I finished that. Now I'm starting on her face, and I sped this up. It's like a yellow. And now I'm adding a peach, but these are those light layers. It's such a light base coat. It wasn't worth slowing this down. It was worth speeding it up. So I'm just kind of building colors, experimenting here. There's not a lot of skin tones in this set. But I kind of feel like it's faster to do skin with Copic markers, and I like to mix markers and colored pencils. So keep that in mind. But I was able to get these to work nicely on her face and arms and legs. So I'm just kind of playing around. This brown isn't perfect for a shadow. I always like to add blush to my little girls and to little guys and critters. So I'm just playing around. Like, it doesn't have to look perfect. Just play around. It always comes together in the end. Now I want to soften what I did here. That brown's a little bit too dark, so I'm just using an eraser and just removing some of it. That's all you have to do. And now I'm starting on the hair. Can I be honest? I don't like using the word hate. I almost feel like it's worse than a cuss word, because it's just so strong and just has such negative connotations. But I almost hate doing hair. And I don't think the hair looks that great on her, but I don't want to invest so much time in making her hair look perfect or even great, because when you look at the whole image, I kind of want the flowers to be the focus anyway. So I'm speeding this up, and I'm just kind of muddling through her hair. The great thing about Stampin' Bella stamps, I love their designs, but the packaging, they have a colored example on the packaging. So when you don't like doing hair or something, you can refer to the packaging, throughout your project, but especially when you don't like doing the hair or something. And so it kind of just gives me my inspiration. I should be just copying it, but I'm not. So I'm just adding layers and layers of lines here and just kind of winging it and hoping that it turns out well enough. And you'll see that it does. And then when I'm finished with the colored pencil, I'm going to use some of my fine tip Copic marker, and that just kind of makes it look better. Just needed like a little dark highlights. See there, I'm referring to the packaging there. And now I'm using that 0.03 Copic marker and just adding some little lines in the hair, and it helps. It helps this process. And sorry, my fingers are in the way there, and I'm also darkening the eyes, of course, because I used a light ink. Usually I make the eyes larger and add little lines for eyelashes, but I'm not doing that here. Now I'm just adding like a very little line or two in the nooks and crannies. Sometimes I use like a dark gray or a navy blue in the nooks and crannies. And since I had this, I figured, well, I'll just accent some lines with the black, and it just kind of draws your eye in. I don't know. I like the look of it. I don't know if you do, but I feel like it makes a difference. And then I'm just moving around her face, back on her hair, and just adding these lines. This is so thin. They're very subtle, and they just add a little bit of touch. So if you don't... Now this tip is so fine, you have to really be careful. You can't push hard. Okay, so now we're moving on our dress, and I'm just doing a very light layer and building on that color again, exact same way I did the flowers. So I sped this up just to move the video along, and just adding some detail, building the color there, not really detail yet. Now, the packaging you could refer to if you don't know where to add shadows. I don't know where to add shadows, and I enjoy the process. I don't like having to think, where's the light coming, where's it going? I just like to add details, and I figure if your details look good enough, no one's going to say, well, the light doesn't look right, or whatever. I don't worry about that stuff, and I hope you don't either. Okay, so now, again, I keep going back and sharpening the tip of my pencil, and I'm just adding series of lines on the top of her dress. You can see how they're starting at the top and coming down, and then I'm focusing on the tips of the greenery there, darkening that, and I'll be adding more lines there, and just moving around this leafy petal part of the flower thing. I know there's a name for this, but whatever. Okay, so now I have a darker green with a sharp tip that I sharpened, and I'm see how that darkness adds more. So I'm just moving around, building up that color, and I'm being careful not to push too hard. Now, when you know where you want your darkest line and your final dark line, you can push hard and burnish it for an accent. But you just have to know that that's what you're doing. You won't be able to add anything on top. Now, I like to draw, well, it's just easier to watch sometimes. I just like to add those little details. I did that on the petals, and now I'm doing that on this. Even though it's, I don't know, should be all green, throwing in those different colors just adds more interest. I love the way the sample's colored, but I just felt like since there's so much purple on the top of the card, it'd be nice to do her skirt a different color. So I'm trying to kind of keep it light, but I'm bringing in some darker blue too, of course, to just have some of those highlights and accents. So I'd sped this up. I feel like when it's fast, you can kind of like just see the color move on the image. And it's also more helpful than just watching me color slowly. So I hope you agree and I hope you don't mind. But see what I mean? I don't know, it's just kind of cool how it moves before your eye and you're like, okay, so that's where that nook and cranny is and that's a good place to add lines. But keep in mind, anything that you do, if you do it consistently, it's going to look good. You don't have to add lines where I do or where anyone else does. If you just build up colors and add lines anywhere that it comes to you and it's consistent, it will look good. And I'm bringing some of that purple down on the bottom of her skirt and just adding those lines. And now I've picked up my fine tip Copic marker and just adding a few lines in those little nooks and crannies with this. And then I'll be finishing up her legs off camera and her shoes. And just moving the marker down there. And then I'm just going to stamp a sentiment from Simon Says Stamp. This is a brand new set. It has some wonderful sentiments. And then I'm finished. That's it. So I hope this was useful. If you're considering getting those pencils from Chameleon, I truly do love them. So thank you for watching. Check out my blog for more projects and see you next time. Thank you for watching.